Anyone who's worked in sales has met that customer, the one who talks nonstop, controls the conversation, and leaves you wondering how you'll ever get a word in, let alone move the relationship forward. In this episode, we're going to explore why the most powerful tool in those moments isn't talking more, it's something other than that. To do this, I'm pleased to welcome a regular guest, Dave Kell, to the program. How you doing, Dave?
I think I'm okay. Yeah. Thank you for asking.
I think you're okay as well, even though you have a Michigan shirt and I'm an Ohio State Buckeye fan, but
Well, we'll settle that afterward.
we will. Maybe on the golf course one day we'll have to do that.
There you go. There you go.
So, Dave, let's talk about this customer that won't stop talking because I never thought of that as being a big issue because if your customer's talking, that must be mean they're agreeable to what is happening. But what's the real truth here?
There's an exception to every rule. And the rule is, generally speaking, the more the customer talks, the better off you are because that's how you learn about the customer. That's how you create relationships and so on. But there is an exception to that, and that's when they talk too much. And you can get and we've all had them. You have customers that are just put you to sleep. You just can't find a word, and it's not that it's not that it's here's what we're looking for in this product. It's going on and on about stuff that just doesn't matter, and so it's a problem. And so what do you do? And I like to say you make use of your most powerful selling tool. Single most powerful selling tool is a good question, and the reason for that is, I mean, nobody thinks of this, but the reason why a question is such a powerful tool, it stands by itself, just above everything else that you could possibly do, ask a good question. And the reason for that is when you ask a question, they think of the answer. And now everybody says, yeah, duh. Whoa, wait a minute. Just let that sink in a minute. So who's controlling the other person's thoughts? Bingo. Now we're seeing what we're talking about here. And so the way to work with somebody who talks a lot is to intervene pleasantly, politely, but intervene with a good question that takes his or her mind someplace else, someplace you want it to go. So they're not talking about, yesterday's golf game. They're talking about some issue. And the way you do that is just ask a good question because it stops the thought process and now it changes their thoughts. So, just let me just prove it to you. Like, did you enjoy what you had for breakfast this morning?
Did I enjoy what I had for breakfast this morning? I
Yeah.
did.
Okay. Well, here's what happened. I really don't care, but here's what
Oh,
happened.
that's not very
When I
nice.
when I asked the question, you probably conjured up a picture in your mind of breakfast, and you made the determination, yes, it was or was not enjoyable. So, in other words, I got you thinking exactly what I wanted you to think by asking a question. And
Do you
so,
want to
if
know what I had?
not yet,
Okay. Okay.
but a good question uh, prepared beforehand, it ideally. Because and the reason you prepare beforehand is because the words are incredibly important in a question, and because of what the power of a question is. If you ask the question one word wrong, they can think of the wrong thing. So your the language that you choose to use in a question is of utmost importance, and that's why I mean, 99.9% of salespeople will do better if they prepare their questions beforehand, word for word. You don't have to memorize them, but if you've read them, written them out and read them, then they're more likely to come back to mind in a good way. So how do you handle the customer talks more than you want them to? You intervene politely, nicely with a good question. Get them thinking about something else.
I'm going to assume it's not about breakfast. That good question.
Probably not.
So what's a good question to ask?
Well, it depends on what you're selling and your circumstances and so on. But you'd ask a question that doesn't encourage the person to continue talking along the same lines. Like you can buffer it. A buffering means that you make a little statement before the question that softens it. So you say, John, gee, I really appreciate that, what you're saying. And I'm also wondering, like this application that you're talking about, that you and I have been talking about lately, how's that going? So a little bit of conversation beforehand to soften the question so it doesn't, sound too jarring, and then ask a question and should be an open-ended question. So don't want to ask a yes or no question like, is that still in the works? No. Okay. So a yes or no question, or I'm sorry, an open-ended question that isn't a yes or no, and do it gently, but try to get the conversation going in the way you want by asking a question that takes them there.
So probably asking a question like, why do you talk so much is not a good open-ended question.
Probably not, but that
Probably not.
does bring up another issue with questions, and that is be very, very careful with why questions.
Mm.
Like there are times when why questions are really important, but you have to be very careful because they can come across as being aggressive, and put somebody on the defensive right away. So why'd you say that? No, 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 no. So, like, yeah, and a why question is a good place to use a buffer. So a lot of my other customers have mentioned this. I just wonder, is that something that bothers you too? Or why is that? And so you get a little buffer first that softens it, takes some of the acidic nature of it out,
Mhm.
and then ask a why question softly.
Yeah, I've heard the approach like I've heard others have the same concern,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
then they're going to elaborate on that perhaps.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, well, Dave, I appreciate this. I think the question concept is great. Just have a few good questions in mind that you could pull from to get
Yeah.
the person to focus on why you're there. That's the
Yeah,
key.
exactly. Exactly. That's it exactly. One of my books is called Sell Your Way. What is it? Question your way to sales success. All about the use of questions in the sales process. Question your way to sales success.
Okay.
Wherever business books are sold.
All right.
Yeah.
Egg burrito.
One more time.
Egg burrito.
Egg burrito.
You asked what I had for breakfast.
That's it. Well, see, I got you thinking about it. You can't get off it.
I need to make another one, Dave.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you
All
for
right.
this. I'll catch you next time.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.